Time for us to head to federal politics and over onto the Flow News 24 desk. And John McDonnell, who writes for us in Canberra, has this to say about the Josh Frydenberg budget. It's hard not to think that if Matthias Cormann was still the finance minister, the budget would have looked a lot different. More Peter Costello and less Anastasia Palaszczuk, writes John. Former Senator Cormann had a couple of hard rules, which the current Expenditure Review Committee of Cabinet has chosen to ignore. Expenditure should not increase by more than 2% in real terms, and the budget should balance over the cycle. Josh Frydenberg has chosen to adopt a Keynesian approach to economic recovery. His sole focus is the reduction in unemployment, and his aim is to get that rate down to 4.5% nationally with the 4-year budget framework. He has adopted an approach that involves massive increases above the long-term trend in expenditure and the deficit of $1 trillion in debt. The big risk is that a large proportion of this investment represents structural changes that are baked in over the long term, says John. Increased expenditure on aged care, childcare and NDIS will go on indefinitely, which that is inconsistent with Keynesian policy theory. This says that governments should spend when there is latent capacity in the economy, but should withdraw expenditure and engage in fiscal consolidation when the economy is at full capacity. Otherwise, there is a risk of high inflation. And the other risk in that the Frydenberg strategy, says John, is that the big expenditure on social policy measures will overhang the private sector and have a negative impact on business investment. Expenditure on aged care, childcare and on the NDIS has a minimal impact on productivity growth. Neoclassical economics says that increased growth and productivity is the result of increased investment in capital, labour and technology. In Australia, this investment is captured in the business investment number. In the 1960s, because investment was 25% of GDP, in the 1980s the figure was 20%. And it was that again in the recovery time of 2013. However, in the last year's business investment was down less than 10%. So business clearly is not happy with the trading conditions to put money back into building new infrastructure and technology. The government is relying on tax concessions to stimulate business investment and the wide-ranging income tax cuts, which they hope will stimulate consumer demand. And the other growth in contemporary economies are knowledge and skills. And of course, every government says that they're going to be increasing the knowledge base. The Gillard government made a big investment in specialist knowledge by creating uncapped university places. And this was meant to lead to more business investment and real wage growth. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Many graduates were forced into the gig economy. And of course, a lot of the places were taken up by overseas students too. And that in itself is a business that now is shut down through the border control. Look, this is something that has to be, I guess, brought to the fore with the situation when one considers not just the former Finance Minister Matthias Cormann and his prudent approach, but Craig Kelly, who is now on the crossbenches and virtually has been jettisoned out of the Liberal Party. He says the budget is a jettisoning of the values of the Liberal Party. That is that we should be self-reliant and not reliant on government. We should believe in free enterprise and not grant and subsidise businesses and the winners and losers, as this business here at Flow has already found out from the current government. We should return to surplus, not endless deficits. We should prepare for future shocks, as the Howard government did when it paid down the debt. And we got the evidence of that, of course, when the global financial crisis came. Even though the Howard government was out of office, it was the ability then of the Rudd government to use some of the banked money to get us through. Unfortunately, this current government didn't have any money in the bank. We had $660 million in debt. Now over the 4 years, it looks like $1 trillion. We're going the wrong way. We're not paying it back, and Josh Frydenberg doesn't have a plan for that.